So we've got Jaynie Smith with us, and this is the second time she's been on the show. We really, really liked her book. It's called Creating Competitive Advantage. If you want to take a look at what Jaynie Smith does, go to www.smartadvantage.com and take a look at her website. But the most compelling question in her book is, why should I do business with you and not your competitor? And one of the things that she says right out of the gate is, if you can't answer this question, you're already in trouble. And then she goes on to explain to you what that really all means. So good morning, Jaynie. How are you?
I'm fine. Good morning to you.
Good to have you back and good to have you aboard. And tell us a little bit about your book and why you wrote it.
Well, I wrote it because I have been working with CEOs for the last 20 years. About 30,000 hours I've logged with these guys, and I have discovered there is a lost discipline in business, and it's really, really frightening. To date, I've asked about 3,000 CEOs, what's your number one competitive advantage? And less than 10 can answer the question in a way that lets me or the buyer know they truly understand competitive advantage.
And these are big companies. These aren't companies like little startups. These are companies that are mid-range and big companies.
Mid-range right on up to big companies do this.
That's unbelievable.
And the scary thing is Warren Buffett, when asked what's the single most important thing you look for when you invest in a company, Warren Buffett says sustainable competitive advantage. When I ask these CEOs, how often do you do a competitive advantage analysis in your company and tell me the truth, they say once a year if they're lucky, or never. So what a huge disconnect that is. When you've got the smartest investor on the planet looking for businesses that have competitive advantage, yet most of them don't even know how to define it or certainly don't know how to uncover it in their own businesses. So creating competitive advantage is designed to show companies where they've got it wrong and how to get it right, and chapter by chapter takes them through the process of uncovering existing competitive advantages. And that's the exciting thing, is most of these companies have them, they just don't know where they are. They don't know how to look, they don't know how to articulate them.
Jaynie, I want to ask you about some of the ways, let's go step by step about how companies can create it. But I'm so astonished that so few CEOs know what their competitive advantage is. I mean, that must have just been
it's shocking, but another level of that is it's not just the CEOs. If we go into a company and we tell them to assemble 25 or 30 of their key executives, department heads, all different departments, we'll ask 25 employees, what's your number one competitive advantage? Write it down, don't show anybody, and then we'll ask them, and how many different answers do you think we get in the same company with 25 different people? Pretty close to 25 different answers. So if the internal organization doesn't have a clue what the competitive advantage is, how in the world is the marketplace and your customer supposed to know what you're about?
Let me ask you,
what does that
do? Do the salespeople know better? I mean, they're actually in the front lines.
Absolutely not.
No.
And I don't blame the salespeople. I blame management for not arming the salespeople with competitive advantages, because it comes from the top. Competitive advantages don't just fall out of the sky. You have to make operational and strategic decisions to have them. And you can't just make them up. You have to first find out from the customer, what do you value? What should we be working on? What should we be delivering? So another scary statistic, less than 15% of middle market companies invest in market research. So they don't even know what the hierarchy of customers' buying criteria is, and they're out there trying to say, well, you should buy from us because of A, B, and C. Customer cares about D, E, and F. They don't even know it.
That's amazing. It's kind of funny because, we had Britt Beamer on. We have him on once a month, and he, obviously does kind of the same, a lot of the same thing. And he said exactly the same thing, and it's an astonishing thing. There's billions and trillions of dollars in the economy, and the people running the show really don't know what it is they're selling or why anybody wants to buy it. This is amazing to me.
And the big companies, the larger companies, do spend money on market research, but by their own admission, when we get them to the side and tell them and get them to confess, how much do you use? How much do you listen to it? And they go, we don't. We fight over it. We put it in a drawer. We really don't use it. I'm talking generally.
Sure.
Of course, there are exceptions, but by and large, the mid-market companies don't invest in it. The big companies do and don't listen to it. So, we're out there guessing about what our message should be. It's really pretty frightful. So, and I got to tell you, the book is loaded with stories of actual clients of ours who have done this work, gotten their arms around it. Revenues increase 20, 30, 40%, in one case 50%, when salespeople are armed with competitive advantages. Without them, you are painting yourself into a commodity corner. And then the only differentiator is price.
Absolutely.
And that's how you get into that margins shrinking. It's pretty scary stuff.
So let me just let's just take a kind of a quick, for instance, out of the book. If I want to start developing a plan on how I realize my competitive advantage, what's square one?
Well, the first thing and the most difficult thing for companies to do is to sit down and write down what are our deliverables. What do we do for a customer that is not a line item? What are all the things we do? We love to say, well, we give you value added. Well, what do you mean by that? That's such a cliche. Don't even say it anymore. We do lots of things. We provide you with free consulting or free training, or we have on-time delivery, or we have 3 times more customer service reps than the competition. Those are all deliverables that we don't charge for that make us different. We offer a choice of warranty. There are many, many things in organizations. So the first step is, what are your deliverables? What are the things that you're giving to the customer that you're not charging them for? Maybe better payment terms. These are what we call rocks you look under that you take for granted, that you don't even think about. I love using training. I say to clients, room full of CEOs, how many of you give away training? Half the room raises their hand. You don't charge for it. So how about a statement? We give away $500,000 of training. If you don't value it, they won't.
Absolutely. Jaynie, I wish we could stay longer, but we have to run.
Okay, well, I really appreciate the time, and Happy New Year to everybody. And again, there's some free tools at smartadvantage.com for your listeners. They can do a competitive advantage audit form on themselves.
Very good. Creative advantage, creating competitive advantage. Just go to smartadvantage.com. Take a look. Woody, what's the market doing before we go to the break?
Down 115 now, currently on the Dow. The S&P 500 down 10.5 points. On the NASDAQ, under the most pressure of the three, down 25 points. That's not quite, almost a percentage loss there on the NASDAQ currently.
And most of our Colorado stocks are just trading very, very, very quietly. Nothing even up 4 or 5%. So we'll be back right after this. It's Business for Breakfast.